Hi everyone. So recently I bought one of these smartphone tripod systems and I'm trying it out in anticipation of recording a couple of talks that I'll be giving over the next couple of months. So I figured I would sit down and share with you some thoughts about things I've been thinking about recently and try and figure out all the bugs of using this sort of setup. So a couple weeks ago I was chatting with a friend of mine who's getting his PhD in computer science, and we were discussing the topic of how graduate students have to take ownership of their work. And it kind of jogged some thoughts that I had had earlier about what it means for graduate students to do research and how to move the research forward, and I figured I would share them with you here. When you start out as a graduate student, or at least when I started out, I really had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what my project was going to be. I had no idea who my advisor was going to be. I knew that there were things that I would like to work on, but other than that, it was kind of a big black box as to how one actually goes about writing and producing high quality research. And so, now that I'm in my fourth and a half year, I feel like I have some sense of what's going on, and I feel I better understand how to take ownership of my research. And I do that by asking myself three questions every day. The first question is, what is the simplest thing I can do to move my research forward? It seems like an innocuous enough question, but it's a really complicated one in the sense that what I wanted to do was I wanted to force myself to establish meaningful and attainable goals for my work every day. So right now I'm writing a talk for Squint 2016. So I've been figuring out what the story of my talk is going to be. I've been drafting titles for my slides. I've been figuring out what the pictures are going to look like. I've been reviewing other videos on YouTube that show good slide design. And every day I ask myself, okay, I need to get this talk done before the conference, so what do I need to do today to make that happen? So for instance, today it was call my advisor and talk with him about the slides and get feedback on them, so that way I can revise them yet again. But at other stages in my project, there have been other answers to this question. So when I was getting started, it was learn to program in Python, learn version control, learn Git, learn how to write documentation, learn Sphinx, learn software engineering principles, learn how to debug your code. As time went on, the questions became, well, what are the important things that I need to learn about today? What are the very timely research questions that we need to answer today in order to move the project forward? What I like about this question is that it forces me to really think through what I'm doing. Because when we start out, we're like, la, 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 la. We don't really know what's going on. And, in that sense, it's very understandable that advisors will kind of tend to say, okay, well, you need to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then you kind of like just do what they say you need to do. But at some point, my knowledge of my project and what I'm working on and what it entails will actually exceed that of my advisors. And when that point comes, he and I both have to be prepared for the fact that I will be off kind of doing my own thing with him supervising. And in order to make sure that I don't sort of drown while swimming in the sea of research, as it were, I really need to be cognizant of the things that I need to be doing to keep the project going forward. And this can be a 30,000 foot view question of, well, what is the project that I want to work on next? Or what are the research questions I need to answer today? Or what are the research questions I need to answer over the next month? And these all kind of evolve and mutate and whatnot, but you still have to be willing to ask that question, what do I need to do today? That way you're accountable. The second question is, what is the most impactful thing that I can do today? I mean, simple thing that I can do is a little bit deceptive because figuring out the right font size for your figures in your paper is certainly something that is simple and will need to be done at some point. But if you don't have the bulk of the paper written, probably better to spend more of your time writing the paper than worrying about the font size on the figures. The purpose of this question is to help me identify the biggest ROI items in my set of things to do. So right now, the biggest ROI is writing this talk, and then it's going to be working on the paper, and then it's going to be writing another talk, and then it's going to be writing the paper, and then it's going to be making the figures. And at some point, it's probably going to be, we need to answer this very important question that we didn't realize that we needed to answer. until we were writing the paper, so let's go do that. I think that one thing that I've struggled with is actually staying really focused on doing research and not getting distracted by other things. So, for instance, some of the work that Calvin Newport has put out about deep work and good study habits and whatnot has been pretty useful in the sense that he advocates for realizing, I think that what he advocates for is realizing that you as a human are very bad at context switching. That is, human beings don't multitask very well. We all suck at it. And so if you really want to get your research done, if you really want to move the project forward, you have to pick something that needs to get done, and then you have to stay with it ferociously. Making figures for a paper versus working through a really hard related work that you need to understand in order to move your project forward. We'd all rather make figures for the paper because it's easier, but in the long term, working through that paper is going to benefit us a lot more. And I've been pretty bad about reading papers and whatnot, but I've been trying to be better about it by making time to look through something like the archive and really figure out what are the relevant papers that I should be reading, what are the relevant papers historically I should be reading, and then sitting down and reading those. The third question that I ask is, did I actually do what I said I should do today? Now, I really don't like the word should because it implies this obligation, and sometimes we just can't get to things. But on the whole, I think that holding ourselves accountable by saying, okay, you identified the simplest things, you identified the most impactful things, did you actually do them? One, by forcing us to be accountable, it makes us aware of how much time we're spending not doing things related to our research. So recently, I've been keeping track on a Google spreadsheet. Like how many hours each week am I actually spending on direct research related questions? That does not include things like messing around reading Google News or kind of reading an interesting book that doesn't really touch upon my research but is kind of scientifically interesting. And sometimes that number makes me sad because I could be spending a lot more time doing research. But then I also understand, and this is where we need to have some sort of care and concern for ourselves, is that there's always going to be more work tomorrow. So there's no need to try and get everything done today. If I said, okay, today I am going to work on this set of slides for my talk, and then in the process of doing those slides, I have to do something else, then I'm not going to feel bad at the end of the day and say, no, I really didn't get to these slides. But I should be able to say, in place of doing that, I did this other important thing instead. That way, we're still accountable. We said, did I actually do it? No, here's why. And that here's why is very important. Because if the answer is, no, I didn't do it because whatever, I was procrastinating all day by reading Reddit, I don't think we should really forgive ourselves for that one, personally. So in sum, I've been thinking a lot recently about how do we move our research forward? And this is an important question because research isn't a linear process. A does not lead to B, does not lead to C. Check out a video by Uri Alan on this subject about being, quote, in the cloud. Research is incredibly nonlinear. It's chaotic. It takes us places we didn't expect. What that means is that we have to be very cognizant about always trying to move forward, just like in Meet the Robinsons. Keep moving forward. And in order to do that, I think we need to establish manageable, attainable goals every day. What are the simple things I can do? We need to prioritize those goals. What are the impactful things to do? And then we need to hold ourselves accountable by asking whether or not we actually did those things. And in that way, I think something like the very long process of research can be broken down into much more manageable steps, and the whole thing seems much less scary overall. So thanks for listening, guys. If you like videos like this or have some other ideas for topics that I could cover, feel free to leave some notes in the comments. Thanks.